Yo, what's going on, guys? Bobby here, and today we have a tier list for December. Now, it's very important that you guys know exactly what is meta, exactly what is horrible, what you should play, and what you shouldn't play. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. Up first, we have Nita, and Nita's actually one of the more underrated brawlers in Brawl Stars. On a lot of tier lists, I see her somewhere near the middle, where that's absolutely not where she should be. Nita is really good in Brawl, Gem Grab, and a bunch of other modes, and she's going to easily be in the A tier. Coming up next, we have Amber, and again, another super underrated brawler. Amber is one of the best brawlers in the entire game, and one of the few that doesn't have a hypercharge, yet is still so good. Amber is good in basically every single mode that's not knockout or bounty, and once she gets a hypercharge, she will likely be the best brawler in the entire game. Now, I didn't make the order for these brawlers. They were very random, but Bonnie did seem to come up very early, so I know I'm going to get a lot of Bonnie comments this video, but I'm not going to waste any time. Bonnie's going straight into the D tier. Like, yes, I did see that Crazy Raccoon in Worlds did actually win with Bonnie, but the Bonnie didn't really do that much, and it was the only time in the entire year of esports that Bonnie was played and won. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to say, why is Bonnie in D tier? But honestly, guys, I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. She does deserve to be in the D tier. Coming up next, we have Chuck, and Chuck seems to have gotten a little bit worse because for some reason he loses a lot, even in Heist now. I used to put Chuck in the B tier because he was so good at just Heist alone that I feel like that carried him throughout the ranks, but because he isn't just the best brawler in Heist at the moment, I'm going to give him the C tier. Now, a lot of you guys think you can make Chuck work in Brawl, Gem Grab, and Hot Zone, and to be honest, I guess it is possible, but Heist is really the only game mode where Chuck should be able to work unless you're facing people who probably just don't have fingers. Coming up next, we have Gray, and honestly, I'm very scared for what a Gray hypercharge can be, but at the moment, it just feels like Gray isn't really that strong of a brawler in the meta. I mean, he just doesn't do that much damage, and the teleport, although it is very good, just isn't enough to bail out the rest of his kit, which just isn't very useful. So we're going to put Gray in C, which might seem a little bit low for him, but I think it's a fair spot for now. I would hope that Gray can move up because he's one of my favorite brawlers. Next up, we have Lily, and Lily's going to be the first brawler in our B tier. The reason we have Lily in B tier is because she can just totally change the game at any point in Gem Grab, Brawl, or Hot Zone. Even in modes like Knockout or Bounty, where you see a lot of throwers and snipers, this is exactly what Lily counters. So although the game mode is about not dying and it's kind of difficult to go in and not die in your first life, especially in Knockout, Lily does counter everything in that meta, and you can spam those invisibilities, so she can definitely make it happen. Next up, we have Lola, and same thing, we're going to be putting Lola into the B tier, just a very decent brawler. She very much reminds me of Colt, but kind of like a safe Colt, where it's like, you can hit people for very small amounts of damage, and it's not too difficult to hit them, but it's hard to do a lot of damage with Lola. She is very well-rounded, though. You can play her on Brawl, Gem Grab, even Bounty, Hot Zone, and Heist as well. So B tier, I think it's totally fine, and I'm hoping she gets a hypercharge again in this next update. Similarly to Amber, I think can be very, very dangerous. Next up, we have Macy, and a lot of people give a lot of love to Macy. I am not one of those people. I'm trying to be a little bit harder on my tier list here, where I'd put not too many brawlers in S and A. So because of that, we're going to put Macy in C. Now, yeah, you can argue that Macy can potentially be B tier because she's very good against tanks, and similarly to a Crow, if you use her hypercharge on safe, you can do like 25 to 30%. But she's just not consistent enough. Any brawler that has any type of stun just completely counters her, as well as any type of thrower just has their way with her. Like, it's just not a good matchup. There's a lot of bad ones for Macy, so we're going to keep her in the C tier. Next up, we have 8-Bit, and I'm actually really high on 8-Bit right now because that hypercharge turret is absolutely insane. The fact that it has more HP and it has a protective shot that spams very fast is very strong, because a lot of the time, especially when you play Heist or Gem Grab and you have that turret out, it's usually brawlers like Daryl or Carl or high HP brawlers that can get close to the turret that try and take it out, but they have no way of doing so with more HP and a shot shooting back at them. I'm a big believer in 8-Bit right now, and he's easily going to be A tier for me. I would especially play him in Heist, where he can do a lot of damage, and Gem, where you can use his teleport to escape with gems. Next up, we have Ash, and he did recently just get a buff, and I would love to put him in the B tier, but unfortunately, he's going to stay C tier for now. Now, if he gets a hypercharge, again, he's one of those brawlers like Amber, where I believe if he gets a hypercharge, he's going to instantly fly up to S tier. Ash is totally reliant on how much rage he has. Rage improves his damage and and his speed. And as you guys know, damage and speed along with health are the 3 main stats in Brawl Stars. With a hypercharge, that's going to give him increased damage. It's going to give him obviously increased speed, and that's all that really matters for Ash. So once he gets that, it's going to be a huge buff. I've said this in all my tier lists. You guys just wait until Ash gets that hypercharge. Next up, we have Barley, and Barley is going to be in our A tier. It's just very easy. One of the best throwers in the entire game and one of the safest. He's just very well-rounded, and he's exactly where he should be in terms of the meta. I don't want him changed at all. And since we're speaking of Barley, I'm going to sneak Larry up there as well. They're basically the exact same brawler. Barley is a little bit better for control, and Larry is a little bit better at countering tanks. Outside of that, they're basically the exact same. I know Barley has a hypercharge, but Larry kind of does more damage. Like, they're very similar. They have the same counters, same matchups, basically same everything. So I'm going to put both these brawlers right beside each other. Next up, we have B, and B has actually trickled her way up the meta. Now, I would normally put her in C, but B is back in the B tier. I did not mean that as a joke. She just does loads of damage, and against any type of high HP or aggressive comp, B is just absolutely insane. If you are looking for a brawler to upgrade that's going to be a good investment of your coins, I would 100% recommend B, because I don't think B is going to fall off any more than she already has in this current meta. If anything, she's only going to get higher, and she's yet to get her hypercharge. So once she gets a hypercharge, she's immediately going to become A tier or S tier. And so you're looking at a brawler that's going to be meta for a really long time, and I would definitely invest upgrading B. Next up, we have Belle, and the exact same thing as B. We have the same strengths and the same weaknesses. The only difference is Belle has traps and a hypercharge. Now, I think Belle's traps are kind of equaled out for B's slow, but the reason why I think Belle is a tiny bit better than B, so I guess I'll put her ahead of B. The reason I have Belle a little bit higher up is because of that hypercharge. Just having a hypercharge not only gives you a crazier super, but also gives you more speed, more damage, and more health. So having this additional button and these additional stat upgrades once per game is kind of an unfair advantage to have over brawlers that don't have it. And Belle versus B is a perfect example, because I think if B had her hypercharge, then she would definitely be better than Belle. But that's just not the case right now. Next up, we have Bibi, and Bibi is one of my personal favorite brawlers, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to put her in the C tier. She actually has a really good hypercharge, and at lower level, she does a lot of work. So if you're playing somewhere from 300 to 800 trophies, and you think Bibi is better than where I placed her, well, that's because she probably is. But the higher up you get in trophies, the worse Bibi becomes, and because of that, I have to put her in the C tier. If you are going to play Bibi, though, I would definitely recommend doing so in either Gem Grab or Brawl Ball. Now we got Bo, and again, Bo is going to go into the C tier. The mines are really good, but really only the mines right now. I would like to see that hypercharge for Bo. A lot of the mid-range brawlers like Amber, Larry, Nita, Lola, and Bo, those brawlers need hypercharges because they help so much. Stat buffs for mid-range brawlers are really important, and you could see that in just small balance changes that happen all the time to these brawlers. So again, Bo isn't that good right now outside of like Snake Prairie or being a gem grab mid, but once that hypercharge comes out, I do expect him to fly up the rankings. Next up, we have Brock, and Brock's actually been a lot better as of late. I don't really know what happened, but it feels like Brock got a lot stronger. So we're going to put Brock in the B tier. He is a really good sharpshooter, and that jump gadget is actually really good, even though I don't use it most of the time. It's really good at avoiding things like Nani shots or Piper curves or just anything that's going to kill you. And the damage you can do to a safe in Heist is obviously unreal. So Heist, Knockout, and Bounty, Brock is good in all of those, so we're going to give him B tier. Next up, we got Bull, and Bull is going to go into the C tier as well. He's only really good in Heist unless you're Pika. I say this every single time I make a tier list, but that's how he's supposed to be. That is the make of Bull. He's a very basic brawler that does basic things. Next up, we have Buster, and Buster is also going to be going into our A tier. Buster is one of my favorite brawlers in the entire game because of how well-rounded his kit is. He has a pull, he has passive supercharging, he has a shield, he can pierce through enemies. Like, there's a lot of cool things about Buster that I like. Now, again, I know I've said this for almost half the brawlers, but when Buster gets a hypercharge, I'm very excited. I don't know what they can do for Buster that's going to give his super a buff with his hypercharge. Like, it's just a shield, so maybe the shield is like a chainsaw on it, or it shoots out bullets, or like something like that. But I'm very excited for Buster's hypercharge, and I think he's instantly going to go into the S tier once he gets it. Next up, we got Buzz, and Buzz is going to sneak into the B tier only because he has one of the strongest hypercharges in the game. Any gem grab game or brawl ball game, Buzz can completely flip on its head by just using one hypercharge and being Spider-Man and going up the map. Next up, we have Byron, and Byron is going to be another S tier brawler. Now, you guys might notice, why are these S tier brawlers not having hypercharges when you're saying that hypercharged brawlers are the better ones? Well, that's because they try and kind of overtune and make OP some of the brawlers that don't have hypercharges yet. Byron only needing 3 shots for super is kind of insane. The star power that doesn't let your enemy regen HP when you hit them with your super is also insane, considering you can just throw it over a wall, and he has a ton of range, plus he also heals. So like, everything is good with Byron. There's not a single thing not to like. The only thing I don't like with Byron is when you're facing a comp that has too much HP, something like a Daryl or a Frank, or when you're facing another sniper like Angelo or Piper. I think Byron does get a little bit weak. But if you're facing any type of mid-range brawlers or non-absolute counters, then Byron is just absolutely insane. Next up, we have Carl, and Carl is going to go into the B tier. Carl's just a very mid brawler right now. Any brawler that has a stun counters Carl, and every brawler that doesn't have a stun or is named Bull or Shelly gets countered by Carl. So it's very matchup dependent, and I think that's totally fair because that's how brawlers are supposed to be. They're supposed to be good or bad depending on their matchups, and I like where Carl is, so he's going to go right into that B tier. Next up, we have Charlie, and Charlie's going to go very low on our C tier. I'm just not impressed with what they've done with Charlie. Charlie definitely does need a buff. I don't know exactly what it should be, but she does need some help. Now we have Chester, and I'm actually very high on Chester still. I'm going to put Chester in my A tier. There's just not a lot to dislike about Chester. I mean, the only thing I don't like is that the supers are kind of random and you can't control them. But Chester has a lot of range. He has a lot of scouting ability because he has shots that spread out very wide, and he does a lot of damage. Usually brawlers that have a lot of range don't do a lot of damage unless they're snipers like Angelo, Nani, Brock, or Piper. But Angelo can do 2,400 from far away and then go right up to you and also do like 4,500. So you have a lot to like about Chester, and he has a couple really strong supers depending on what you get. So it might be a little bit high, but I'm going to put him into the A tier. And now I want to put Colette into the A tier, but unfortunately for her, she's going to go top of the B tier. She's just so good in Brawl Ball and especially Heist, but so bad basically everywhere else that it feels weird putting her in the A tier. Like Buster, Larry, Barley, 8-Bit, Nita, Chester, Amber, and Byron, it feels like you can run those on a lot of different modes, whereas Colette, you feel very limited. So we're going to put Colette into B tier, but the very, very top. Next up, we have Ruffs, and Ruffs has sneaked back into the meta, so I'm also going to put Ruffs high up on the B tier. Now, what Ruffs Hypercharge does is it instantly gives your teammate their Hypercharge if they have a brawler that has a Hypercharge. So let's say you're playing Colette like we just talked about, and you use your Hypercharge on safe and you do 35%. Well, if a Ruff gives you a Hypercharge right after you use yours, you instantly get it back and you can go and do another 35%. Now, this is very game breaking, especially in something like Heist or Brawl Ball, where Hypercharges are so important and can win you a game or score you a goal. So if you use it properly and time it properly with the correct brawlers, then I think Ruffs can actually be very, very dangerous. Next up, we have Colt, and Colt is a little bit of a weird brawler. I had him in the B tier before because he was probably the best Heist brawler up there with Chuck, but we're going to have to move him down just like we do with Chuck because he has fallen off on Heist, and if you're only good in one area and you've fallen off, you have to fall off the tier list. Now, Colt is obviously usable in Brawl Ball or other modes. If you hit shots, you win game with Colt, but that doesn't mean he's a good brawler in these game modes, so he's going to be C tier for now. Next up, we have Cordelius, and although Cord is a very good anti-tank, he does have his weaknesses, so I'm going to put Cord in the B tier as well. Listen, Cord is really good in modes like Brawl Ball or in just any map where you want to be able to focus somebody fully. Let's say you're facing a kit, and the kit jumps on a brawler's back. Well, you can just Cord super them to take the kit off, and then the kit is useless for the next 20 seconds. Or you could be facing a Primo in Brawl Ball and always take that Primo into the dimension, which doesn't charge the Primo super and makes him useless. There's a lot of good things you could do with Cord, but there's a lot of bad matchups as well, and he also doesn't have that much range, so we're going to keep him in the B tier for now. Next up, we have Crow, and we're also going to put Crow in the B tier. He's just a very mid brawler right now. Nothing too crazy outside of his Heist, Hypercharge super on safe, but besides that, he kind of gets poked out by a lot of brawlers like Belle, Brock, Byron, Lola, for example, all counter him with range. When you're playing Crow, you want to be playing into brawlers like Colette, Lily, Buzz, or Carl, where you can get a lot of hits and you can get closer to your opponent. Basically with Crow, if you're outranged, you lose. If you're not outranged, you're gonna win. So just try and play based off of that. Kind of funny, we have Daryl and Doug back to back, but in my opinion, Daryl is the best tank in the game, so we're gonna put him in S tier, and Doug is the worst tank in the game, so we're gonna put him in D tier. Daryl is good literally everywhere. The hypercharge isn't so good, but again, giving Daryl stat buffs is kind of enough because he's so broken right now. I think he's going to be good no matter what his stats are when he has 2 roles, because he can just go all across the map basically. And he's just a lot to deal with. Now over to Doug. Doug is the exact opposite. Dude has no range. He has no mobility. You guys can tell with the tanks that are high up on the list. Daryl, who can roll twice. Buster with passive super. Buzz, who has a hook. And Carl, who has a hook. Those brawlers are high up because they can get close to their opponents. Meanwhile, Bibi, that doesn't have anything outside of speed. Ash, that doesn't have anything outside of speed. And Doug, that has literally nothing, doesn't have a way to get to their opponents and up close and personal to their face. So these brawlers are useless and basically just walking super machines. Next up, we have Draco, and I just pushed world record Draco. So I feel like I have a very good idea of how good or bad he is. And he is definitely in the C tier. I mean, bro is not a good brawler whatsoever. I think the good thing about Draco is how good he is at getting control of a certain area when he's in dragon form. So if you're playing hot zone, I think Draco can actually be really good there, but that's about it. Next up, we have Dynamike, and Dyna's honestly in the A tier right now. Like, Dyna is a very insane brawler at the moment that does very high damage, and I would not be surprised if you guys saw a lot of Dyna in your games today or in the upcoming future. He's just so good as a counter pick for a lot of these brawlers that aren't good against throwers, and sometimes when you can go Barley or Larry, you can also go Dyna and punish your opponents a lot harder, specifically in a draft setting. So we're going to put Dyna in the A tier. Now, Edgar is honestly not that bad, but he's also not that good. So we're going to put Edgar into the C tier because that's probably where he deserves to be. The hypercharge is obviously insane. Nobody is denying that. But outside of that hypercharge, he's not that strong. Now, Ems is next, and as much as I want to put Ems into the D tier, I think she is just above it in the C tier. She just doesn't do enough damage right now. The only thing that saves Ems is the fact that she does have a knockback, and if she didn't have a knockback, every single brawler would just run right at the Ems, and there would be nothing that you can do about it. Next up, we have Angelo, and I see a lot of people kind of underrating Angelo for some reason. Angelo is by far the best sniper in Brawl Stars, and he is easily going to be in our S tier. Until we see a major nerf coming to Angelo's damage, I think he's always going to be S tier, because the fact that he can walk on water, walk right up to you from 1 tile away, do 4,000 damage, and just jump away or just hit you again is unreal and very, very strong. Now we got Barry, and Barry's like the weirdest brawler to rank in Brawl Stars because he's a thrower that's reliant on the other team's brawlers for how good he is, but it's not even his matchups. It's like about how much damage those brawlers can do and if they can over damage the amount of heals you give. Like I don't know if I made sense saying that, but it's just very hard to judge Barry. I think I'm going to put him into the B tier because he does heal a lot, and if you do have comp with Barry and there's no way of removing that healing with the damage that you have, he's just going to win every single time. Next up, we have Juju, and it took me a while to really understand how good Juju is, but I think Juju is going to be in the S tier. I mean, both gadgets are just very strong. The water shot is very strong. The grass shot is okay, but annoying. Like, the grass shot doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't do that much damage. What's annoying about Juju is the water shot and the super. So if there's maps with water, just like Angelo, Juju is insane. And obviously she's a thrower, so she has very good matchups over a lot of brawlers that don't do particularly well at shooting over walls. Next up, we have Melody, and Melody is an insane brawler. If any of you guys saw Worlds, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially site Tempo. But Melody right now is probably the best heist brawler in the game, and unless she gets an immediate nerf, that is probably not going to change. So we're going to put her up into the A tier, and I think she 100% deserves that. You can also play Melody in other modes, but I would probably stick to Heist because she's just so good there. Next up, we have the other new brawler, Shade, and Shade is going to go immediately into the S tier. Now, obviously, it would feel like you'd be kind of a dummy to not notice this at this point, but every time Brawl releases a new brawler, they're always going to be S or A tier. I mean, it just kind of helps them sell the brawler and make more money if you can buy a brawler that's broken and nobody else has him or her, and they can just dominate the field of play. Like, although Juju and Shade are not totally broken, they're definitely both still S tier. I mean, Shade can literally shoot through walls and walk through walls. So, I mean, that's just insanity. And he is I think it's a he, is easily going to be S tier. Next up, we have Eve, and honestly, guys, Eve sucks. Like, there's nothing good about Eve. Eve needs a hypercharge. I'm going to put Eve into the D tier. Maybe she doesn't deserve it. She's definitely better than Bonnie and Doug, but there's nothing impressive at this point about Eve. There's multiple brawlers that can walk on water, 2 of which that are S tier and have the same amount of range and damage and health as Eve. So there's just no point of picking Eve over Angelo or Juju. So D tier for Eve. Next up, we have Fang. Fang is going to go into the C tier because, again, they nerfed the hypercharge. Thank God that they did. But you really can't do anything on Fang unless you're chaining supers around. And even if you are, you're also feeding supers. I mean, it's just not a really good brawler right now. But to be honest, I'm happy that Fang isn't good because it's better that than being broken. Next up, we have Frank. Frank is going to be S tier easily. Frank is one of the better tanks along with Daryl, but they're 2 very different tanks. Daryl is more of an assassin where you roll in, get a kill, and roll out, where Frank is more like, hey guys, look at me, I'm Frank. You guys should shoot me and charge my super as I walk around with my 13,000 HP and make room for my teammates. They're both good at 2 completely different things, and Frank is by far in a way the best at what he is good at, so he is going to be in the S tier. You can play Frank in Hot Zone, Heist, Brawl Ball, like Gem Grab even. Frank is really good on a lot of different modes, and I would highly recommend playing him. Next up, we have Gale, and Gale is going to be in our B tier. I mean, he just has the greatest hypercharge in the game, and if you have the best hypercharge in the game, you have to be high up on the list. Outside of that, Gale is really good at countering tanks, so he's kind of got 2 things going for him. I would play him in Hot Zone and Brawl Ball or Gem Grab if you had to pick a few modes. But yeah, he's really good. I would keep him there in the B tier. Next up, we have Gene, and Gene is like Mr. Consistent. We're going to put him in the A tier. The healing star power is just so strong and so good. That mixed with the fact that Gene Vision is so easy to use as well. You put the vision gear on Gene, you can always see where people are because it's so easy to hit one little speck of a Gene shot. And then you mix that with the pull super, which can always kill somebody, take somebody's gems, completely change a game. Those are 3 things that is amazing that Gene has, so he is going to be in the A tier. Now, his hypercharge does suck and his damage is low, so you have to make sure you're playing high damage brawlers if you're playing Gene with a team, but he's a very good brawler nonetheless. Next up, we have Griff, and Griff is going to go into the C tier. There's just a lot better anti-tanks than Griff. But what I will say is I think his hypercharge, not that I know anything, but this is the only thing that makes sense. I think his hypercharge might be his super is going to break walls, just like his gadget breaks walls, because that's kind of what Griff does. Griff counters tanks, he's good in the open, and he breaks walls. So if Griff's hypercharge super can slice through walls and break walls, then I think Griff is going to go from C or maybe B tier all the way up to A or even S tier, because that's just going to be a huge buff for Griff. Next up, we have Grom, and honestly, Grom could be B tier, but I'm going to sneak him into the C tier. He's actually pretty good on Heist because you can do a lot of damage with Grom. I wouldn't recommend playing him there, but if you have a good matchup, you can definitely make it work. And in Hot Zone or Bounty, obviously Grom's bomb is insane, and you can definitely make Grom work as well. Next up, we have Gus, and a lot of people are very high on Gus right now, and he's played a lot, but that doesn't mean he wins a lot. Gus actually has one of the worst win rates in all of Brawl Stars, but it's partly because he's played so much. He's overplayed. People think he's so good you can win with him everywhere, where that's just simply not the case. So we're going to put Gus into the A tier. I think he's between A and B, but probably the A tier. His shield is really good. His gadget is okay, but he just has really good matchups into mid-range brawlers, and the shield helps whoever you're giving it to just so much that he's at least A tier. Next up, we got Hank, and honestly, Hank isn't that bad. Like, Hank does counter some people. Hank very much counters Shade, which is so weird because Hank is like D tier and Shade is S tier, but we're going to put Hank in the bottom because he needs some help. I mean, he needs a buff so badly. And next up, we have Jackie, and I know there's a lot of people that really like Jackie, but Jackie is going to be in the D tier as well. She's just not good right now. She needs a buff. I'm telling you guys, she is one of the worst brawlers in the game. Again, if you're playing at low trophies where it's about 300 to 800 trophies, and players can't aim so well, and you can get up close to them very easily, then yeah, obviously Jackie's going to be good. But if you're playing at a higher level where players know how to keep distance from tanks, and they know how to hit shots, you're going to have a very hard time playing Jackie. If you're a Jackie main and you disagree, I challenge you to push as high above 1,000 trophies with Jackie as you can and see what you can really accomplish versus pretty good players. Next up, we have Janet, and Janet is going to sneak into the C tier. I always speak about Janet and Penny at the same time, so I'm going to grab Penny in just a second, but Janet just needs 1 or 2 more buffs, or maybe a hypercharge to really move her up. I always talk about them together because they were both S tier meta at the same time, and it's because they had a very well-rounded kit, and nothing could really attack them and counter them too hard. If it was a thrower, no worries, they have enough HP. If it was a tank, no worries, they do enough damage and have enough range. There was always something good enough about Penny or Janet back in the day that made them high tier. But right now, Janet just can't kill a tank. She's not good into snipers. She doesn't have a hypercharge. There's just not a lot of good things about Janet right now. Whereas Penny, she is definitely an S tier brawler. She has a very well-rounded kit. Her hypercharge is insane. Her barrel is insane. Her splash is insane. The extra range on her shot made it really insane. She is just very strong right now. Now, obviously, something like a Daryl or a Frank can walk in a straight line and take out a Penny. And obviously, a thrower can also do good work into Penny. But just about everything else honestly kind of sucks into Penny, and you always have a turret on the map, so that's very important. It makes it like a 4v3, and that helps out a lot. Now we got Jessie, and guys, Jessie is not a good brawler. She is going to the C tier. She needs some help. Now again, low trophies. Jessie is one of the greatest brawlers in the game. In fact, I know for an 100% fact, because this came from the guy that was in charge of balance, that Jessie isn't buffed because at low trophies, she is so good because people don't know how to really dodge the bounces. She just gets insane value and is insanely strong. But the higher up you go, the worse she becomes because her shot is slow, people know how to juke the bounces, and her turret just isn't that good compared to someone like Penny. So she's going to be in the C tier for now, and I hope she gets a buff even though I don't see one coming. Next up, we have Kit, and Kit is going to be in the A tier. Kit is actually a really good brawler, whether you're playing in Showdown, whether you're playing in Knockout, and you could do something with like a Daryl or a Frank, whether you're even playing in Hot Zone or Brawl Ball, where you can work with your teammates to score goals and make cool plays. Kit is actually really good, and I would definitely recommend leveling him up right now. Next up, we got Leon, and Leon is going to go into the C tier. He's just not very good right now. He needs a little bit of a damage buff or a HP buff, and he's going to be right back into the meta, but he just feels a little bit underwhelming right now. Lou is next, and Lou has taken a pretty firm grasp on the meta right now, to be honest, especially with the more tankier or mid-range options becoming more usable right now. Lou just completely shuts them down, so 100% Lou is B tier, or maybe even a little bit better. Same thing with Mandy. She is going to go right into the B tier. She's one of the best sharpshooters, so in Bounty or in Knockout, you cannot go wrong playing Mandy. I would avoid playing Mandy in Brawl Ball, Gem Grab, or Hot Zone, but you can honestly make it work in Heist if you're playing specific maps such as Safe Zone, for example. Then we got Max, and Max, who is normally in the A tier, is going to go up to S tier because it just feels like speed is so important right now. Like if you're playing with a Penny, a Shade, Frank, Daryl, Amber, Nita, Buster, Chester, like you name it, that speed is going to help those brawlers so much. And all of them have hypercharges besides Amber. So every time you use your hypercharge, you're giving them hypercharge, and it's so strong. Max is definitely S tier. He is insane. Next up, we got Meg. Meg is a little bit underrated, but still in the C tier. She just doesn't have enough range right now. And a lot of brawlers that have the same range as Meg have a lot more rewarding hits when you actually do get those hits, or supers when you get them. So Meg is going to be in our C tier, right beside Miko the monkey, because Miko obviously also just isn't that good. There's basically half the brawlers in the game that if you play Miko into, you just automatically lose. There's a quarter where you can kind of beat them, and then there's another quarter where it's like this weird middle ground. Maybe sometimes you'll win, maybe sometimes you'll lose. The thing with Miko that kind of sucks though is unless you're using that one specific star power that doubles your damage on the high safe or spawnables, Miko basically sucks against things like Larry bots or Nita bears or Jessie turrets, and you find yourself wasting the few ammos that you get on things that don't even charge your super, and that just makes you a useless brawler. Next up, we got Mo, and Mo kind of fell off a little bit. I'm still going to put him into the A tier, but it's kind of a weird A tier, to be honest, because there's a lot of good brawlers that make a lot of game-changing plays here, or brawlers like Melody, which is so good in Heist. Whereas Mo just feels like he's a pretty safe pick into everything. It takes a while to charge a super, but once you do get a super, you should be good for at least one kill with it. So that's why I think he's still A tier, but he's definitely not S tier anymore. He definitely fell off. Now we got Mortis, and Mortis, again, is one of the better brawlers in the game now, which is a really weird thing to say, but we're going to put him into the B tier. The hypercharge is just one of the best in the game. You guys have all probably been team wiped by a Mortis hypercharge at least one time, and it's probably going to happen at least one more time because Mortis can just do that now. And obviously he's very matchup dependent, so you probably want to avoid playing him where you're going to be seeing Shellys or Nitas or just any type of tanks. But if you get a good matchup with Mortis, he's basically unstoppable, and there's like a 99% chance you're going to win unless you suck at Mortis. Now we got Mr. P, and Mr. P is going to go into the D tier. He just needs like a complete buff, like a big buff, because he is useless right now. Nani up next, and Nani's going to go into the B tier. You guys all know I hate Nani, but the reason I hate Nani is because I play all the snipers besides Nani, and Nani counters all of them. So there's just no time where Nani isn't going to be at least B tier because she counters every S tier and A tier sniper with one gadget. I would stick to playing just Bounty and Knockout with Nani though, because she is not very good anywhere else. Next up we got Otis, and Otis is going to be in the B tier. Very simple brawler, very easy brawler. He, shoots kind of like a Lola, just not as many shots. Very similar range, and his super just mutes somebody, so you want to get up close and personal and just auto aim with the super. But he's really good against tanks. You can play really well on Otis and still lose a game though, because he doesn't have that big pop-off super that's going to guarantee you a goal or guarantee you a game win. And that's why Otis just feels like a B tier brawler, because even with good matchups, you have to play good from start to finish, and sometimes that doesn't always happen, and you win 90% of the game and still lose. Next up we got Pam, and I'm just going to put Pam into the D tier. I mean, she could probably be C tier, but I'm trying to be a little bit harder on brawlers this time around. And she doesn't have any area of her game that is very strong. I mean, if you want to be healing, then you would definitely lean towards Poco or Barry. If you want to play for control, you would use something like Pearl or Buster or Larry, or there's just a ton better options in every aspect than Pam right now. So she's going to be in the D tier, but I hope with the hypercharge that does change. Then we got Piper, which is my personal favorite brawler, and Piper is going to go into the A tier. In my opinion, Piper is the second best sniper in the game behind Angelo. I don't really count Byron as a sniper because he's not like a sharpshooter. That's not what he's good at. He's good at getting constant value with his heals, his poison, his shots, like stuff like that. So in terms of sharpshooters, I think Piper is easily the second best. Next up, we got Pearl, and Pearl, just like I said, was a very safe control brawler. Although his super does kind of seem useless, if somebody like a Carl, a Buzz, a Mortis, or a Lily tries to get close to you, you just super and you completely knock him back, do damage, and make that brawler useless. So the super isn't good, but it's a good defense mechanism, and he's got a lot of HP and does a lot of damage, especially with full charge. So Pearl is honestly a very well-rounded and good control brawler. Then we got Poco, and Poco honestly sucks if you don't have the star powers, but if you do, Poco is actually pretty good. So I'm going to put Poco as well in the B tier. Poco is just very strong at healing, very strong at getting good value only if you have the star powers, and it's impossible to miss a Poco shot, so easy B tier. Then we have RT, who is one of the better sharpshooters in the game as well. But the difference between RT and someone like Piper or Angelo is RT doesn't do a lot of damage, but he leaves those players marked. So you hit them and you do a little bit of damage, but the next time they get hit for a ton of damage as long as they're marked. So RT is honestly really strong because of that. And then obviously that like double Jackie form super is very strange. It's very strong, and I don't understand why RT can walk on water now, because that was an extremely unnecessary buff that I didn't think he needed, and now he is very, very strong because of it. Rico up next, and until that multi-ball launcher is completely nerfed, Rico is going to be S tier because Rico is just so good. It's so easy to play Rico. I understand it looks cool, and it is cool, but you just bounce off walls in areas that you cannot get hit, and you can hit the other player. It's extremely annoying to face a Rico. I say this every time I make a tier list video. When Rico used to be a brawler, what you would do is go like Edgar or Tank or something like that and get right up next to him and kill him. But now with that multi-ball launcher, you can't kill Rico from up close because he just kills you in 1 second. So I just don't understand how you're supposed to kill a Rico these days. Now we have Rosa, and Rosa is going to be in the C tier. I actually like Rosa a lot, and I personally don't think Rosa is C tier, but everyone else does, and I think I'm just biased towards her, so we're going to keep her there. Now, the reason I think Rosa is actually pretty good is because 1, the hypercharge gives you speed and slows down your enemies, which allows you to get closer, and B, the gadgets slow your opponents if they're in grass, and you only really want to play Rosa on grassy maps anyways. If you're playing Rosa on an open map, you're kind of lost. And those are two different methods, which we said earlier for tanks are very important to get close to your enemy. Now, the reason Rosa feels like a C tier brawler though is because she just doesn't do that much damage once she gets up close and personal to that enemy. But at the same time, she does have a shield. Honestly, you know what? I'm not listening to anyone else. I'm putting her in the B tier. She's a B tier brawler. Let's move on. Next up, we got Sam. Sam is going to be in the C tier. I think he needs a little bit of a buff to perhaps his movement speed or his healing that he gets from his gloves. He could definitely work if it's played into the right comp, but it has to be the right comp, which is why he is a C tier brawler. Next up, we got Sandy, and Sandy is like the easiest S tier brawler of my life. Like, Sandy is so good. Sandy will always be good with that hypercharge and with those stuns. Like, there's only good things to say about Sandy. He is so strong. The only thing is just don't play him in knockout or bounty. Besides that, Sandy is easy to win with everywhere. Next up, we have Shelly. Shelly is going to go into the C tier. There's just so many better anti-tank options. There's literally like 20 better anti-tank options at this point. Shelly needs some type of rework to be better. Then we have Spike, and Spike does feel a little bit better now that he got buffed, to be honest. So I'm going to put him in the B tier, but I feel like I still need a little bit more time to know if he's truly B tier or not. Only a few brawlers left, and there's some pretty interesting ones and some pretty strong ones. So starting off, we have Sprout. Sprout is a really good bounty and knockout brawler. He is very annoying with those walls and has a ton of range. So we're going to put him into the B tier. Again, I only recommend playing him though in those two modes. Anywhere else and you're probably not going to win. Then we have Squeak. Squeak is also going to go into the B tier. His hypercharge is really strong and it makes him do a lot of damage. Plus the slow star power when you hit somebody with your super is really crazy, because just like the Squeak slow, it slows them down. It allows you to hit them, and that does a lot of damage and charges your super like crazy. Then we have Stu, and Stu has either the number 2 or number 3 hypercharge in the game right now, which means he is going to go directly into the S tier. Then we have Surge, who is also going to be an S tier brawler. Surge right now is just like the ultimate anti-tank, and it feels like nobody can do anything to a Surge. He does a ton of damage. He has a level 5 hypercharge now, and the thing that's so strong with Surge is just like all the strong anti-tanks, he now basically has a stun. Like, it's not a stun, but it's a knockback when you have that jump, and any anti-tank with a knockback, jump, stun, whatever it is going to be very, very good. Then we have Tara. Tara is going to be an A tier brawler. She's very good right now in Gem Grab, Brawl Ball, and Hot Zone. You can even make her work in Heist with the Tara pets, but she is another one of those extremely strong anti-tanks that are so good right now, especially because of the hypercharge that she just got. We have Tick, who seemingly fell off a little bit, so we're going to put him into the C tier, but I still think he is a really good thrower, especially when you need a safe thrower. Willow, who is very annoying, who is also going to go in the C tier. Again, I just feel like she needs to do a little bit more damage because it feels like she doesn't have enough range or damage right now. And then we have 3 very interesting brawlers up next. Now, Clancy, guys, Clancy kind of sucks now. I don't know where to put Clancy because Clancy was S tier and it feels like he fell off so hard. For now, I'll put him in the B tier. But Clancy, like, he's not the greatest anymore, and I think he's only going to get worse. A lot of games right now, you guys see Clancy is losing in like 30 seconds because it's just too hard for him to get above level 1. And even when he's level 3 right now, it just feels like he can't carry as hard as he used to be able to. Before, when Clancy got level 3, it felt like an automatic win. Now it's not really like that, so we're going to put Clancy in the B tier for now. Next up, we have Primo, and Primo actually feels a lot better than what he used to feel. I'm still going to put him in the C tier, but he honestly feels very strong in Brawl Ball right now. So if you're a Primo main, make him work now in Brawl Ball. And then finally, we have Kenji, who is still going to be an S tier brawler. He just does a lot of damage. He has crazy movement, and his super is absolutely insane. So that is going to be my tier list for the month of December. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you guys disagree with. Now, to be honest, it is... Oh, how did Colette get to C tier? She's supposed to be in B tier. Now, to be honest, it is sometimes a little bit annoying when I argue with people who have 30,000 trophies and they think that they know more when I've played this game for 8 years and play professional and do content on it every day. But that doesn't mean you guys are wrong. It just sometimes feel like people are not open-minded, and you are talking with someone who plays the game for hours and hours and hours a day and knows just about everything. So when you guys do argue, just make sure to present your points. Say why you guys think certain brawlers are misplaced, why some should be higher, some should be lower, and I'm really interested to see and have nice conversation with you guys. So anyways, that's going to be it for my list this time around. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe like I've already said, and I will see you guys next video.